for the members that they do have logged in the system, was go over project completion and answer any questions if they had any on doing group enrollments. But should I go through just regular enrollments maybe?
That might be.
Okay. All right. Let me get logged into county here. Okay. Well, I'll open the field. I guess my first question is do most of you guys have paper enrollment forms then for your members that you're keying, or are you having families enter in their enrollments? They're keying off of paper-based forms, right?
No, my county's all on 4-H online.
They're already in. Okay. All right. Paper. Okay. So we have a little bit of both. The biggie for your families, if they haven't already gotten in, I don't know. That's a little difficult. I mean, have you guys, I guess for the families, if you've already got them in the system, then they should be in. If not, then, then I don't know. If they've completed the project, then that gets a little problematic. That might be something where you have to get the paper or have the family come in, working out some of those logistical things. For your paper enrollment forms, if you're keying in enrollments now, the easiest way to go about doing that process, log into your county, and the first part, once you're in 4-H online, you can add the family, enter in their family email, re-enter it. That kind of initiates a system search within 4-H online to look for duplicates, enter in the family phone number, and then you go ahead and click add family. And then from there, once you get the family in there, you can add your members. But the key route I think that families do forget is that, yes, they have the member profile, but what's connected to that, those member profiles, regardless of the family, is this family profile here. So a biggie if you're working off paper-based enrollments, I guess it depends if you can have a conversation with the family to see if they have internet access and to find out. Really, there's we do have some families in Idaho that just simply do not have a computer, but they still have an internet address and they still come into town to check their, email. They can do that at the library. So when they get access to technology, they do know how to log into the system. So a valid working email address is first and foremost in this system. What will happen is if you don't have the valid email address, you're going to get a red alert. You will actually have an error message under here that there is an issue with this email address. If you do try to send correspondence to the family through 4-H online, which you have the opportunity of doing that, you will get bounces, you'll get dropped emails. So they're going to be missing on that. So one of the things, people don't read when they're doing their enrollment forms, but a big piece is if they can delineate and flesh out for you if their correspondence preference is mail or email. There's benefits to that. A, you know how to send your information to those folks. B, you may have to do some regular mailing correspondence to those families. If their email addresses change and then they set up another address, then it's highly likely that they'll set up a duplicate account. So Regardless if they've got a paper form or if your families are doing that, then for the most part, at this point in the time, you know, it sounds like we have some anomalies there where we have families that are not in the system. But for the sake of this conversation, yes, okay, we're going to assume that they have an account in the system. The big piece for you to search by is the email address. In searching by the Families tab is where you want to go, because sometimes your members and volunteers records may be in various states. They may be tied into a different email address altogether. But on your Families tab, you can search by the last name, you can search by their physical address and their email. So if you get a question from your families that have an account, or if you're talking to somebody new and they're not sure if they have an account already, you can search by that name. If you get somebody new to your area, let's say they're a resident of Nevada, I can actually move them from one county to the next. Unfortunately, if they're new to the state, then they have to create a whole new account. I have found with those, they will want to establish a new email address for that as well. Because if they keep the same email address that they had, it's going to connect to that old account in another state. So there are a couple of things on that. For your families that are already in the system, so October 3rd is going to be when they can get into the system. We need a little bit of time once we do roll over to make some of these system changes. And so what happens to those accounts, whether you've keyed them in or whether they've keyed it in themselves, they're all going to go inactive. Unfortunately, we don't have a reset button for the projects, so they're going to have to pay special attention to, you know, make sure that they're selecting the right projects if they're not going to do X, Y, Z. Maybe this year they took cat, horse, beef, and quilting. Maybe next year all they're going to do is quilting. So the system will have all of the projects they were involved in this year in that record. They have to be sure that they read that and delete, and all that they're doing is that quilting. So that's a record keeping piece that you need to double check as you're approving those enrollments. But basically what your family should do is they should have an inactive record. They'll see a button to click enroll or re-enroll for 2016-17, and it's no different if you're working off a paper-based enrollment. And I guess if you're working off a paper-based enrollment, search for that family. They should already be in the system. If not, then create the new record. But always do the search first as a checks and balances, just to make sure that you're not entering in a duplicate family. But families should be, you know, part of the nice thing about 4-H Online is it takes us out of that data management practice in theory. Families should be updating their information. If their contact information has changed, they should be updating any of those emergency contact numbers. If they don't have changes, that's great, but they do need to read through that. Certainly updating health information. And we have found a couple issues with that in Idaho where parents are not disclosing that their child has, for example, a prescription inhaler. That gets problematic when the child has a massive asthma attack. We have to take her to urgent care, do a breathing treatment, prescriptions, the whole 9 yards, and get another prescription for an inhaler. It was that bad. So they need to read, they need to update their information, take responsibility for that. Depending if there's any changes, like in your policies and procedures, updates to the code of conduct, those types of documents, if they provide any consent assent to, those items will be updated. One big piece is if you guys do have on your enrollment packet electronically any consent items like that, make sure your paper-based packet matches the same thing. And if you are doing a paper-based enrollment, parents need to sign off on that. Technically, parents are supposed to be providing that consent as well, which is why you have a parent, guardian, and member assent. piece to that as they're working through some of those elements in the system. You know, and I guess from the returning family standpoint, the initial setup, the initial login, that first year, setting up your family takes a little bit more time. From here on out, it should be a matter of clicking a button, okay, double checking, verifying my information, da 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 da. You go through and work through your screens, but the process should take less time than what it does on that initial setup. Because all of that information retains. As you guys move forward with uses in the system, if you decided to use animals tabs, you know, there are animals that persist, will carry through, your pet projects will carry through. One thing that does advance in the system automatically, years in 4-H, their grade, and it should also do that counter on the projects, so we don't get like a clean slate, if you will, when we roll over for the projects. So the fields that they have that are required, those have to be entered in. So email is a required field, or it may be visible for you guys to have to check, but all those required fields have to be completed before you can actually finish that enrollment process. A big thing on if you want your volunteers to log into the system, so that could be either your project leaders or your club leaders, they need to click that little button, yes, I'm a volunteer. That gives them the green V. And I don't know why the system doesn't automatically do that. But let me show you. So with having the green V, that signifies, yes, they're a volunteer. But you can provide access for your leaders to log in. And that saves you guys some time without having, you know, you may still field phone calls or that type of thing, but they can log into 4-H Online and view who's in their club or who is in their project. So I can kind of go through a little bit of that. So for your volunteers, so the green V is very important. They need to have that. But to set up the access for your organizational club leaders, you'd actually have to do that at the club level. And, oh, I just logged in. Sorry, wrong button. To check and see who has or has not, or to get these folks set up, you just click edit on the club and you will see the volunteers, and that's why the V is important, who has signed up or who is affiliated with this club. And if you know that this is the main person, you can allow login and you can allow member management. In Idaho, for example, we don't use the member management as much. That does allow that leader to make changes to the member record. If you have a very solid working relationship with that individual and they know how to manage their club, then that's all good and fine. The pieces that the leader will see, they'll have the search screen. They will have a confirm members, members and reports. Now, the confirm members does not supersede or take away your final approval of that member. And the confirm members piece is pretty critical, especially if you guys move into anything on volunteer screening. You know, that person should not be active unless all the stars are aligned, basically. For children, that means, okay, their enrollment packet is done, they've paid their monies. That's pretty straightforward. But if you're working through, like, say, an application, certification process, and perhaps a background screen, that volunteer should not be active until all the required elements are completed for that process, if you will, or multiple processes in some case with the new leaders. Active means, yes, they've met all the pieces, they've done the requirements, they're all set, they can meet with children. Your inactive leaders, and if they don't have a piece met, whether it's finishing their enrollment packet or paying the county, whatever the options are, if there's a missing piece of that puzzle, if you will, and they are not active status, they should not be meeting with children, period. That'll cause some consternation, but there are ways, like if you have a leader that drags their feet on getting their money in, you can inactivate a club so that members can't sign up for that club. And when they start getting a lot of phone calls from their youth wanting to get into their club and the parents, that's a good motivator for that individual to get into your county and to pay their money if you do collect fees. Or perhaps if they haven't finished their enrollment, you do have options on those lines.
Just a quick example of something that happened when I was in Idaho, Erica, just to share. We had a club leader that would not turn in her financial documents at the end of the year. And while we haven't been strict on it here in Nevada, we're going to have to get strict on that. But what we did, she just flat out would not turn in any documents. We shut off the enrollment to that club. And by gosh, she got her documentation in within a week because she had all of those parents and all of those kids, everybody calling her. So that's an advantage of doing the online enrollment, is if you've got a leader that's habitually late on paperwork or any of those things, you can shut it off and they can't, and then they're going to get it done.
Yeah, and if you have the ability, like I said, with the families that don't have internet access, there are ways around that. Depending on your office situation, if you have an extra computer, we have several folks that have basically open hours where if you have questions or whatever, come in, we'll work on the computer, we can walk you through these steps. Visiting with your local library. So across the board in Idaho, we have approval from our libraries to access 4-H online. So we have a blanket approval for the firewall clearance, which is awesome. So any of those folks that are going into the library, they can access the system, they can get logged in, they're getting their information. And I guess the big, goal would be to try to really encourage your families to use the system. They can take ownership of their information, they can get logged in, and your project leaders, all they're going to really see is they'll have a list of their members, they can export the list for email, they can make labels. It's a very simplified piece versus what the organizational leaders have. But it just takes you out of having to push paper. And it really does save time. It's just, there are definitely advantages and benefits to having families knowing that they have that in the system, that they can access that, and once they use it, they'll get, it's not as 100% intuitive, like working on different apps, but they can, once they use it, they can get right into it. So a couple of things I wanted to talk about, like on the housekeeping side. So if you're finished with your fair, we're pretty much getting ready for a new year. So one of the big components that you can do in 4-H online is your project completion. So we're on the enrollment tab, click on the search icon, and if you click on your projects, you get your drop-down list of all your projects, and you're going to want to reference either your judges sheets or whatever your premium lists are, or whatever, your formal documentation from whatever event you basically did, or whatever tracking method you have for signifying, okay, this is the placings these kids have gotten for this particular project. So you select your item from the drop-down menu, hit search, you should get your members to populate on there. If you know all of these youth have completed this project, you can go to check options and click check all. And you can still do that. So let's say, for example, that maybe Ramon didn't complete. So we could just uncheck his name, but everybody else in this project is completed. Once you have who has completed the project identified with the check mark, then you go to project completion options and select project completion, and it's a matter of entering in the date, selecting that, and what will happen is you will, whatever date you enter in there will populate on here, with the exception of the person who didn't complete that project. And unfortunately, you have to repeat that step for every project, but it does move fairly fast. We can, and then you just work through each of your projects, and then the other piece is, let's see, project completion, and then you just want to make sure on state level, you want to make sure that you have your group enrollment, if you've had any youth delivery programs, let's say you did a day camp, those types of things, you want to make sure your group enrollments are in, and you can filter these down. Because if you get, as we move forward with this, and it looks like there's a lot of group enrollments that have already been entered in here. As we move forward with this is going to get a lot of information. But to add a group enrollment, so on the dashboard, we have the group enrollment icon in this little gray ribbon here. And I don't know why it's on the left-hand side, but add group enrollment is here. And then it's just a matter of click that. And it's a 3-step process. You have to enter in your program name, a description. The description is just an in-house thing for you. Start and end date of the program. It always defaults to the current 4-H year. And then the club or group, if it isn't listed in this list, you can create the group. Select your delivery mode, enter in your presenter information, contact hours, big couple pieces for tracking in ES 237, military involvement, and then if it's a food and nutrition program, you do have to select a project to link with it. And then it's a matter of moving through I don't know. So once you have, those are like, I think, the minimums. You have to have the date, you have to have your program hours, and then the project, and you should be able to move to the next screen. And so in 4-H Online, duplicates are considered are your current 4-H participants. So it's highly possible at times when you're doing programs, you're going to have brand new people, and then you'll have existing 4-H kids, if you will. You want to count your totals, including your duplicates, and you have this subtotal, and then the system will take away basically your duplicates removed. And this number has to match this number, has to match this number and this number. Basically, you're going to want to get, or you will need to enter in your information, your distributions, race, residence, and ethnicity and grade for your new audience. You work through those screens, and then once you enter in all that, hit continue. And if you have new volunteers, be it adult or youth only, you would enter in their distribution information, or, the ethnicity, race, your classification, whether they're direct or indirect volunteers, and then if any training was done. And then there's a little box you want to check and click submit form. I'm not going to do it with this one, but the nice thing about this, though, is you can edit this at any time. You can come back to that. You can search what you've entered in for group enrollments once we roll over, all of this information stays. We have asked for an archive option. I don't know if that'll happen in this version of 4-H Online. There is going to be a version 2.0 of 4-H Online, so it may be in there. You want to make sure that all of this information is entered in by next week too, before we do the rollover, because this information gets automatically submitted, processed by James, and is submitted to USDA NIFA. The ES-237 report you can pull at any time. You want to click on your reports icon. We default to the Enrollment Reports tab, and you want to click on your standard reports. You have the option here of all reports, activity, ethnicity, participation, volunteer, and youth count. If you do your all reports, you just highlight it and click run, and it should work. And you can also highlight the report, do a right click, and you can export it as a PDF, which is pretty slick too. But the nice thing about running your ES-237 is a couple things. It gives you what your numbers are for your youth. It gives you a distribution on your grades, residency information, the ethnicity groups that you're working with, and then you can also look at your project engagement. And part of my other hats that I wear for Idaho is curriculum. So looking at our numbers and how youth are engaging in the program is always something we pay attention to. Is are we retaining and growing programmatically with our club participation, or are we going into different areas in our models? And that's also a benefit with having your group enrollment. It gives us very valuable information as a state program. Okay, where are we hitting our marks as far as program delivery? Where are some opportunities for us to grow? And curriculum wise, you want to keep abreast of where your interest is. And has there been a drastic decline in project areas? And usually that's an indicator that perhaps the curricula is not meeting the needs. If it's on a broader level, if it's within your community, then it's like, okay, so I did have some, maybe you have a couple different leaders in a project. Everybody in project A completed, everybody in project B did not. Okay, so where's the problem? So that gives you some pretty valuable information as far as making decisions on if you need to update curriculum, or if you need to have a conversation with the project leader and going, okay, so explain to me what happened here and why didn't this go? But you can get valuable information out of your ES-237. Looks like we have some chat activity here.
Mostly it was me reminding people of a couple things too.
Okay. Yes, overnight camps is a group enrollment, not as a 4-H project. Let's see. Kind of rattled through some of that fairly quickly, but rollover should go pretty smooth. You're not going to see a lot on your end. You're just going to see when you come into the office on the 3rd, everybody in your county is going to be in active status. If there's new projects, then I'll probably need to make a point to visit with Carrie to see if there's any specific pieces I need to put in the system. But one thing is, if you do have new projects, you need to make sure you link those projects to your clubs. You'll want to check on that and just kind of keep tabs of things on the 3rd. And if there's any questions, then there's no such thing as a bad question in my book. So sometimes those questions tend to be something a little worse, especially after rollover. So that's a good, you want to monitor that for that first week, and then definitely after that point as well, just to make sure everything's working. But on the backside, it's just, if you've got all of your project completions done, you've got all of your group enrollments in, and if there are data management pieces you come across, so let's say maybe you do have some duplicate records you need to have addressed, send me an email on those. Let's see. So what I was referring to, yes, at the county level, you can create your own projects. If you have county-based projects, then you would create a project alias. At the state level, if there's new materials that are being offered or adopted by the state, then we would create that at the state level, and those projects, regardless if it's a project alias or a project, those need to be linked to your clubs for your enrollments, because even if you're doing paper-based, if you're working in that individual record, or if you are that, let's pretend I'm that person and trying to re-enroll, if the projects are not linked to the club, then they're not going to be able to, those projects won't populate on the drop-down menu when you select that club. So, and I can show you where that's at. So, okay, projects are added at the county level. Okay.
Right now, we really don't have a system for statewide projects.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
Hopefully someday.
Okay. So project aliases, we have a broader, bigger list, but if there's something that's not on there, you can add a project alias in your county. But where you want to make sure your projects are linked to your clubs is clicking the options icon, and in the gray ribbon, you'll have link projects to clubs. That's also, this option, this area here is also where you check and allow your login for your project leaders. And your project leaders, their passwords are specific to the project, and we can't change that. But that is where you would go to provide that login. But to make sure your projects are linked to the clubs, you have to select each of your clubs from this drop-down list. But as you're working through that, you select the club, and then you need to select what projects are offered in that club. If there's only one project, that's fine, or if they offer everything, that's fine as well. But you do need to go through that process for each of your clubs, because as you're working through enrollments, in order for those projects to appear for a member, that has to be linked. So some of these clubs have projects, some of them don't. So that would be a good housekeeping piece. And if you make those changes now, those will stay in the system through rollover. So if the project is right now and inactive, okay, so if you found the leader needs to make sure that they have an active account in the system. They need to be green status. The leader needs to be affiliated with the club, and then depending on the club that offers that project, you just need to make sure that that club has the appropriate project in it. And then for whatever members that are supposed to be in that, make sure that they're enrolled in that. But on that instance, I wouldn't do any of that until we roll over, because the volunteer record is going to go inactive. The member records are going inactive and will be on a new 4-H year. So that would be something to save. Just make sure that the project is affiliated with the right club. And let's say if it's a countywide type deal, then you would want to make sure that project is an option for all of the clubs. You would definitely want to if that leader has internet access, which I hope he does, you would want to definitely do the allow login, and if it is a countywide project, check that, because in that way they get the list of everybody in that project from everywhere. And if not, that's still a good thing for you to do, because then when you pull your reports, everybody from XYZ Club will pull on that, and that's a report that you can share with that leader. You know, be it paper-based, or if you need to mail it to them, you can do it that way as well. I hope I answered that question. So there's a question on how to collect their $1. Don't they just come to the office and pay that?
I believe that that's what they'd have to do. At this point, we don't have a way to put it, you know, have an online payment system.
Yeah. There was a question what the $1 is for. That's for their American Income Life Insurance, correct? Well,
I'm guessing.
okay. So I went through quite a bit there. If you have questions on any of the setup pieces, that type of thing, I'm going to copy my help sheets URL. The screens are going to look, the content's going to be a little bit more geared to Idaho, but there are tip sheets here for a whole variety of things. So basically everything I kind of walked through today as far as project completion and linking projects. Where you'll find the club and project leader pieces, that would be in right under the enrollment data management section. There is a whole club and project manager setup and login. So basically that goes through the setup steps that you have, and then there's actually user packets, so you can kind of see what those leaders will use, what they will be seeing as they walk through that. And I can do a share screen here so you can see where I'm at. Is right here. So the user guide for your organizational club leaders is gonna look like this. So this gives you an idea of what they will see on their screens. The setup has to be done by you first before they can actually use it. So that's one important note, but this kind of gives a breakdown in detail, kind of some of the things that they have, and the options, and the reports that they can pull. So that information is there, but there's a wide variety of content in here for you guys. If you have questions.
Just so everybody knows, I don't know, because we have a lot of new people too, there is a link to the Idaho site on our website if you go, but you have to go to the General Extension website and then the employees only section. And how you get into that is your username and your password, just your regular username and password for email or whatever. And then there's a 4-H online help under that, and you can, and so there is a link to the Idaho pages. The other thing I was going to let you know, I know Sam's on today, and Sarah was just sharing with me last week that Sam put together a really good document, like I may have used the one that you had, Erica, but put together a document for their club leaders on how to do the enrollment, etc., through 4-H online. So if Sam, if you're willing to share that, that would be fantastic. I don't know if it's an online or if it's just paper at this point, but it was really good.
Awesome. All right, any further questions? I gotta check. my calendar.
We do have the 4-H basic online training next Thursday morning at 9 a.m. where Erica is going to just go through very big, like if you don't know anything about 4-H online, essentially, which we have a lot of new staff. So I figured it out the other day, and I think we have at least 9 or 10 brand new staff members, like within the last 2 months. So,
wow. That's,
yeah.
so that's at 9 or at 9:30?
I've got 9, but it might be 9:30. I don't know. I've got 9.
Okay, I'm going to change mine to 9.
Okay. And I'll send you that link.
And then our next Wednesday session then would be October 5th.
Yes.
Okay, at 9.
Yes.
Okay.
Anybody have any new or any other questions?
I'm just making sure I got, okay, the 10th through the 12th I'm in New Orleans, and then the 19th would be the next. You know what? You guys are just aligning perfectly with the weeks I'm actually in the office.
You think that wasn't on purpose, Erica?
Oh my gosh. Well, because the 20, yeah, that is perfect. That is great. I don't know. For some reason, there's a bug going around on some of our computers on opening our Outlook app. What a pain.
Nice.
I'm like, well, thank goodness it hasn't corrupted my cell phone calendar, but they just get this circle and won't open Outlook. And it's like, this is not working, Adam. Come on. Help me out here.
All right. The other thing I'm going to do, so I did record this, so I'll send out that recording. I'm also going to save the chat box, and I will send the chat box to people as well, and then I'll send it to you, Erica, so you've got that information.
Okay. And if there's questions as you guys are working through things, do not hesitate to send me an email, call me. Like I said, I'm happy to help wherever I can.
And we have the Zendesk. If you go back to the notes that I sent last Monday, I believe, like a week ago Monday, there is the Zendesk email address, and so that worked really well. I know Molly already used it, and
that is the support tickets. That is that I should put that. It's support at Nevada-h.zendesk.com. The nice thing about that's the Zendesk email address. So what that does is we actually have a separate system. It gives us a way of tracking and doing any metrics. A good way for us to flag if it's truly a system issue, or if it's something, just a Q&A type thing that we can walk through, but I can track that. It gives me a separate flag email, and it's Switzerland compared to the insanity of my inbox. And this time of the year, we're going through curriculum stuff and getting ready for rollover. It is a little helter-skelter right now.
Yes, and it also, so it sends a copy to me and to Erica. So if it's something that I can quickly help you with, I can do that quick. Or if it's something we need her help on, then she'll jump on and help that.
And then as we get tickets coming through, I mean, if we're hitting a common thread, then it's something where we can go, okay, we need a little bit more in depth on this, or we need to investigate it a different way. So it is very helpful. So, all right.
Great. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. I've got another meeting that starts at 10, so I've got to jump on it too, but I will get this recording out to everybody and to the whole system, but that way you guys, if you have any other questions, look.
So Carrie, I have another meeting at 10 as well, but maybe, do you have time after that? It's going to be about an hour.
I should.
Okay, I was going to give you a call and see what things, or what I need to put into the system. I'm making a list.
Okay, cool.
So,
Sounds good. Yeah, just mine will probably last about an hour and a half.
okay, yeah, Shannon and I got to go through health form changes and events and stuff, so it might take some time.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, thanks, Carrie.
Okay,
Thanks,
you, guys.
everybody.